Well, hello and welcome back to another week's analysis behind the news. And what a week it was, my goodness. We'll try to keep this short within my 10-minute time frame, but also try to keep your attention. So here we go. Trump won the Indiana primary, and of course Cruz and Kasich then dropped out, which was rather a shock to many folks. Of course, the establishment has recoiled in horror. Paul Ryan, I'm just not ready to back Donald Trump, he said in a hissy fit over the weekend, or I should say on last Thursday. CNN reports that Ryan's position makes him the highest level GOP official to reject Trump since the real estate mogul became the last candidate standing in the party's nominating contest. It says further into the article, Ryan said he hopes to eventually back Trump and to be a part of this unifying process. The first moves, though, must come from Trump, he said. Ryan said he wants Trump to unify all wings of the Republican Party and the conservative movement, and then run a campaign that will allow Americans to have something they're proud to support and proud to be a part of. Well, isn't that just great? Because now it all falls onto Trump to do all of this, of which the GOP should have been doing all along, unifying all of the party, but yet they would rather much have their people and their agenda in place. Now, does that mean that Trump isn't part of their agenda and their people? We really don't have a clue. But his actions will follow all of this and tell us further into the future. It's one of those things where you hate to pass the bill in order to see what's in it, but it almost seems like that's the case here with these presidential candidates. Because their rhetoric is one thing, but yet their record is always another, isn't it? And that's just not the case, or that has been the case actually with how many presidents in a row now. It's actually a disgusting process, but it is what it is. And for a little bit more introspect on that, let's take a look at how George Washington depicted political parties. This comes from his 1796 farewell address. Recall that he had 2 terms of office, and at the second term he said, I'm done. He said, no more. I'm just going to limit myself and we'll be done. Well, here's what he says, and this is a little long, so my apologies to begin with. It says, and he's talking about the Republic here. Respect for its authority, compliance with its laws, acquiescence in its measures are duties enjoined by the fundamental maxims of pure liberty. The basis of our political systems is the right of the people to make and to alter their constitutions of government. But the constitution which at any time exists till changed by an explicit or authentic act of the whole people is sacredly obligatory upon all. The very idea of the power and the right of the people to establish government presupposes the duty of every individual to obey the established government. All obstructions to the execution of the laws, all combinations and associations under whatever plausible character, with the real design to direct, control, counteract, or awe the regular deliberation and action of the constituted authorities, are destructive of this fundamental principle and of fatal tendency. They serve to organize faction, to give it an artificial and extraordinary force, to put in the place of the delegated will of the nation the will of a party, often a small but artful and enterprising minority of the community, and, according to the alternate triumphs of different parties, to make the public administration the mirror of the ill-concerted and incongruous projects of faction, rather than the organ of consistent and wholesome plans digested by common councils and modified by mutual interests. However, combinations or associations of the above description, and he's talking about political parties here, and he could be talking about other entangling alliances, may now and then answer popular ends. They are likely, in the course of time and things, to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust domination. Let that mouthful sink in, and that's a heck of a mouthful because I had a hard time getting through it, didn't I? Let that sink in a little bit. They become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men are enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government. Isn't that what we've seen? Particularly with the big government, the globalist folks. We have a hard time discerning whether or not that's a Republican or a Democratic strategy, but yet it's neither or. It's actually both. How many times has a Republican Congress or Republican president tried to roll back government, at least federal government on that perspective anyway? We haven't seen that, have we? Not for a long, long time. That being said, let's move on to a little something that John Kerry, Secretary of State, said at a what did he say here? This is a commencement address that he had at Northeastern University in Boston, and this was over the weekend. So in concluding his speech, he said, and he was kind of poking at Donald Trump and some of the Republican establishment. He says, for some people, he said, that is all they need simply to climb under the sheets, close their eyes, and push the world away. And shockingly, we even see this attitude from some who think they ought to be entrusted with the job of managing international affairs. The future demands from us something more than a nostalgia for some rose-tinted version of the past that did not really exist in any case. And here's the key. You're about to graduate into a complex and borderless world. Now keep that in mind, that this is coming from a guy who was anti-war, but now he's a point man for a warring administration. And recall that avoiding war was given as an excuse to form entangling alliances in Europe, which ultimately led to the European Union, that some Brits are right now trying to desperately get out of through their Brexit campaign that they have, or the vote that's coming up on June 23rd. And speaking of which, U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman has come out over the last week and said that the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, has its best chance of being passed by Congress in the lame duck session, so just after the presidential election and before the Obama administration basically is done, which sometime in January. So between November and January is where they're looking at the lame duck session. More than likely it'll be a little bit, right after or something thereafter the presidential election. So keep that in mind. And what we'd like you to do is to go to jbs.org, click on Act Now, click on Federal Legislative Action Alerts, and look for No Lame Duck TPP Trade Deal. That will allow you to send a pre-written note to Congress letting them know of your opposition to the TPP and, of course, to the lame duck session. If you take a look at the history of the lame duck sessions, what's come out of those things has basically been a detriment to our republic. And this would obviously follow in its footsteps if we had to, of course, have the lame duck session and if they were to pass the TPP. So we certainly don't want that. So we need your action, and we could use it right now. So until next week, we'll see you then.